Welcome again from our remote location. Today I'm going to talk about something that I am an expert in. Generally, when I do a podcast, I try to share information. I try to talk about astrophysics or the coronavirus or 9/11 or something like that, where I'm sharing information with a number of people about something that everybody can understand. It's not hard to understand factual information involving the intelligence agencies and events that people have heard about for years. But this is an area that I am an expert in. I have been able to apply my knowledge and creativity and expertise and my imagination to a lot of areas to advance astrophysics and to investigate aspects of miraculous events that are only reported through intelligence agencies, or miraculous events involving religion. And one of my main assertions is that there's really no relationship between religion and science, and the understanding and the interfacing with the creators, so to speak, is a scientific experience. So the Torah and the Bible are unscientific, and an immaculate conception can only result in a boy, because all the genetic material comes from the woman. And Judaism was an attempt by God to interface with mankind, so a burning bush and the things that they used to communicate with Abraham stimulated his imagination. Abraham was accused of hearing voices, and they said he was psychotic. But when you have to use your imagination to understand what's happening before your eyes, it can get your mind going. That's why I have been diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic. I have all these diagnoses that they tried to put on me because I'm so dangerous with regard to what I know. They try to suppress me. So if I try to get a date, they say to a woman he's gay and he's mentally ill and he's dangerous, and you can't date him until he's under the control of his great cousin, Larry Meisel. And so over time, women just forget about me. And they compared my trustee, Pamela Steck, to Robert Stack of the Untouchables. So then they say, don't touch him. So then women are afraid even to touch me. And then they say, and don't listen to him, keep quiet. That's the movie Bridge Over the River Kwai. So then that's quiet. So these are games, but they're also programs. They're methods that the intelligence agencies use to keep me silent and keep me unattractive to people, so that I have to live a very lonely life without romance or anything normal like that. However, I'm really not lonely, because I'm always being entertained by manifestations of the creators of the universe and all the entities that have given me my education, because they need me to convert what they know in data form to psychic energy, so that they can read what I know from reading my psychic energy. So with that, I'll say that I have real expertise in the securities industry, and almost every CIA director has come from the securities industry, because this is where all the money is, and these are where trillions of dollars are represented through the securities industry. And I have created 6 corporate entities in my long life and long career. I'm kind of an old guy now, and I was never handsome, but when I had money, if you look at this face and project me as a 35-year-old making $25,000-30,000 a month, then you can look like this and get beautiful women and have that kind of a life. So I had a very complete life. I had some of the most beautiful women that people would imagine because of the money, and I had a famous name, so people wanted to know me for social reasons. So I had a complete life. I've been able to enjoy love and romance, and it's a good thing that I did, because I haven't had any love and romance in the 30 years that I've been living in a 500 square foot basement apartment with no air conditioning or heat. I live a life of total deprivation when it comes to the things that people want to make their lives happy and comfortable, and I've been deprived of that, but I did have that when I was younger. So they say better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. So I have loved and I have experienced a lot, and I would like to have that now, because of the only job that I really have left, the only task that I have to accomplish is impregnating a woman, which would give me another half and double my political power. It would give me a child which would carry all of my knowledge, because my job is not only to impregnate a woman and raise a child that they're going to occupy. When I say they, I mean like the most powerful, oldest entity in the universe is going to be in a human child. And my job, like no other man, and I'm giving a role model's point of view to men, because women don't need us. An immaculate conception can impregnate every woman in the world, and men are not needed, because that's something that they can do. Men create all the wars, men are the mass murderers. We have testosterone because we had to kill mammoths and fight a hostile environment in order to protect our families. But that is over with now, so men are a liability, and they don't like men up in the atmosphere. So I'm going to give men a role that's going to start with me, because this is essential to educating the creators, giving them and me as much power as possible, and creating a role for men. So if I can impregnate a woman, my job will be to raise the fetus. I'll spend 9 months raising the fetus. I'll write about it, and I'll demonstrate it, and I'll model it, so other men can know how to do this, so that men will have a more valuable role than just dropping off some sperm. And I think it might teach them more sensitivity toward their woman and child and offspring, and also would give them a tremendous amount of insight, and also it might bring them a tremendous amount of power. Each man who's raising a fetus is going to attract the most powerful, data-based dark matter in the universe, a dark matter that's encasing consciousness that's been around for billions of years. This is a way for men to participate in all of the assets that women have by being women and the peaceful gender. That is a very long introduction to Securities, but I'm passing this on because I can do things that other people don't know how to do because of my knowledge of the securities industry. I'll give you one example of how dangerous I am to the U.S. government, okay? Jeff Bezos was a creation of the CIA. As I mentioned in a past show, I live in Astoria, so that's Long Island City. Jeff Bezos was looking for a home for Amazon. He could have had Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco. What city doesn't want a multi-billion-dollar company like Amazon? But Jeff Bezos knew who I was, and he wanted to bring Amazon to Long Island City because he knew what I was doing, and he knew that I was responsible for his purchase of the Washington Post, and I sent him 2 express mail packages, which he must have gotten. So for some reason, they didn't intercept his packages, or maybe he knew tangentially that I had contacted him, but he wanted to bring Amazon to Long Island City, and there were people in the House of Representatives and people in the mayor's office that didn't want him here because they thought he would be a negative influence. I was desperate to have Jeff Bezos come here, because why in the world would he come to Long Island City if it wasn't for me? There's no reason in the world that he would ever come here if it wasn't for me. So I'll just tell you that if Jeff Bezos had come to Long Island City, this is what I could do. First of all, Amazon is named after the Amazon River in Brazil. And Jeff Bezos' Hispanic girlfriend represents Brazil, because I have coffee art. I've been promoting coffee art. So Brazil is the #1 coffee producer in the world. So in order to forestall my coffee art, they had Brazil come to the forefront so they could snuff out my artwork, bring in Jeff Bezos, have a Hispanic girlfriend for Jeff to stultify all of my Hispanic initiatives. I came here from Colorado, which means full of color, and colors are essential in the media and in our society and culture, the control of colors, what colors mean. The dominant colors are red and black. Black is oil. The CIA represents the oil industry. It's the largest industry in the world. So black doesn't represent black people the way Oprah said it did. It represents oil. And red is the home of the red man, which is Oklahoma, where all the oil was produced in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. So I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I was raised there. So in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where Black Wall Street was in 1921, when you take Oklahoma history, it's all about Native Americans. So I was born and raised in Tulsa and knew nothing about Black Wall Street, which was the worst race riot in American history. It was in my own hometown, and I knew nothing about it, which will give you an idea of how suppressed American history is when it comes to people of color. They don't want people of color to be rich. They don't want people of color to represent America. They want people of color to get their education from the Army or the Armed Services or on rare scholarships, because they want you to be in the Army. They want you to be conscripts. We have 172 military bases. We need soldiers to carry guns and help us steal oil from the Middle East and steal bananas from Venezuela, and just whatever we do. We live in a democracy. It's a great experiment. The success of America has totally to do with democracy and immigration. All the people that come here from other continents have democracy to allow their imagination to run free. So a lot of the people that we have here are connected to their continents of origin. So when I talk about securities, I'm talking about that. Our population is 18% of all U.S. citizens are Hispanic. So that connects to a billion Hispanics in Latin America. We have 13, I think, or 14% of our population is African American. So that connects to a billion people in Africa. And then our Asian population is about 10 or 11%. So that connects to China alone is 1.4 billion people. And so we went halfway around the world to slaughter 3 million Vietnamese people in their own country to prevent the spread of communism, where China now is 1.4 billion people represented by the Communist Party. So I'm not really into mass murder. I'm not into killing at all. I'm into marketing and PR. And so marketing the securities industry as the answer for income inequality. I see reparations for slavery, which were stultified in every conceivable way by the U.S. government. They don't want African people to be paid for their contribution to this country, which was the entire infrastructure of America was built by slaves, and you didn't have to pay anything other than what you buy in a slave market. So we got our complete infrastructure built for nothing. Native Americans contributed all the land that became America, so they live on reservations. They have never been invited to be a part of all the territory that we took away from them. So the secret of America is free labor and free land. However, American democracy is the essential culture. They will not accept anything other than democracy up in outer space. And if you really want to make an enemy out of the entities that want to share this planet with us, you can try to force demagoguery and fascism on them, because they will blow this planet up before they're going to accept anything like that. So I think I've used up about half of my time, but I want you to understand that Securities is the key to income equality, and I believe that reparations for slavery can be absolutely complete with access to Wall Street. Here we are in New York. This is the home of Wall Street, where we have numerous multi-billion-dollar public offerings. I see no reason why Blacks and Hispanics, and then later on Asians, there's no reason that they cannot finance their businesses on Wall Street. And that would make millionaires and billionaires out of those cultures and those people, and they could hire their own people, and they could have their own businesses and be the face of America and have tremendous wealth all through the securities industry, which is why I'm one of the most dangerous people in the world, and why they keep me broke and tell everybody about all these terrible traits that I have, because they want to keep me sequestered, where they can see how I learn everything and they can try to copy what they see happening with me. But I'm breaking free anyway. I'm breaking free anyway. And they're not going to be able to maintain their hold on me. They're not going to be able to maintain their hold on our ethnic citizenry. So I wanted Amazon to come to Long Island City. And what I had planned was for 7,000 to 10,000 people of color, with a contract that I had already initiated with the National Minority Business Council. We were going to deploy that contract. We were going to give 1 share of stock. We were going to use affirmative action to access the securities industry. We were going to use affirmative action to pay for a private placement memo where we could share the securities industry with our people of color. So 7,000 to 10,000 Blacks and Hispanics would have used affirmative action to buy 1 share of stock. So 1 share of stock in Amazon would be what, $200? So 7,000 to 10,000 people would own 1 share of stock, and for that 1 share of stock they would pay $200. So then we would have 10,000 shareholders, because if you own 1 million shares or 1 share, you have the same status as a shareholder. So we would have 10,000 new shareholders that would have increased the shareholder base of Amazon by 1/3. Then we were going to organize our shareholders into groups so that we could have 1 person representing 1,000 shareholders. So then we would have 10 people going to the annual meeting of shareholders representing 10,000 people. And so we would then be able to influence this company from the board of directors, from Dover in Delaware, where we could start initiating laws that would be favorable to people of color. I could have taken a bite out of Amazon with 10,000 ethnic shareholders. We could have controlled 1% of the stock of Amazon. 1% of the stock of Amazon is enough of a holding to get started. Then we would be able to bite into it more. It's kind of like, when the wolves kill a giraffe or something like that. They take a bite out of it, and then they wound it. Then if 4 or 5 other wolves come along and take another bite, and then the giraffe, eventually loses blood and falls over, and then the pack of wolves come and eat the rest of the giraffe. So I have 10 minutes left, and I'm going to be able to wrap this up in 10 minutes. That's exactly what I was going to do with Amazon. Just like the wolves eating a giraffe. We take a bite out of Amazon with 1%, then we start controlling and manipulating the board, then we start controlling the not so much the earnings per share, but the amount of revenue coming into the company, and the amount of transactions taking place with the stock. So these are all measurable entities, and also goodwill could be manipulated. So we could be talking about our position with Amazon. This goes for every public company. I want to see Africans and Hispanics become shareholders. I want to use this Amazon idea as the methodology where we can start controlling the securities industry. We would be able to increase our share of Amazon by 2% in a year, and then 5%, and then 10%. By now, I guess it's been 6 or 7 years since Amazon was turned away. By now, we would be in control of Amazon, taking over that company and using it as a role model to take over other public companies. We would go after companies on the NASDAQ, which is a negotiated market. The American and New York Stock Exchange is an auction market, and they try to get ahead of competitors by executing trades in milliseconds. We don't have to do that with the NASDAQ, so we would use the NASDAQ almost exclusively because it's a negotiated market. And then we would start negotiating our position with NASDAQ stock and use this Amazon example of how we would be able to take over that company. We would have people of color talking about the securities industry. We would be trying to raise private placement funds so they could have private placement memos and raise maybe $100,000, $50,000, which would allow them to buy a share of a public company. All you got to do is own enough stock to take a share out of a public company. And once you become a shareholder, then you can take another bite and take another bite and take another bite, and then until you just gobble it up. And then when we have marches on Wall Street protesting the lack of public companies, the last public company on Wall Street was Black Entertainment Television. That was my deal. Robert Johnson was a lobbyist for telecommunications, a cable company. And Bob Johnson's first cousin was Dorothy Porter, who was head of the Civil Rights Commission. So they offered me a job as a lobbyist for the cable industry, and I turned it down and said, I want you to make good on your offer to finance Altivision, which was a company in the black community that they promised to create programming channels for blacks and Hispanics with programming companies. They reneged on the deal. So I tried to force them to do that. So I made an enemy out of them. So when I refused to take a job as a lobbyist in Washington, they took Bob Johnson, who was the first cousin of Dorothy Porter, head of the Civil Rights Commission, created BET, made him the chairman, made him into a multi-billionaire, and then sold or then acquired BET through Viacom so that Bob Johnson couldn't finance any other black entrepreneurs. So they got it all bottled up, and they won't allow people of color, and this is going to change. So I'm here in Long Island City because of Clarence Thomas. My cousin Larry Meisel had a butler named Clarence, and his mother was my Aunt Flo, so we used to go over to his house all the time when we were kids. So Clarence the butler would make Shirley Temples for me and my sister, and then over time Clarence the butler became Clarence Thomas. And Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court, his job was to make sure that affirmative action never transferred to commerce. So what I'm talking about with regard to affirmative action, and all my early articles from 1990 were all about affirmative action, which has now been eliminated. And Clarence Thomas has been exposed as a puppet of the autocrats that are all multi-billionaires, getting him to try to propose laws to keep people of color at bay and under control and poor. just because he's black doesn't mean he cares anything about black people. And Anita Hill, who testified against Clarence Thomas, was a law professor at my alma mater at the University of Oklahoma. So she exposed Clarence Thomas as a sexual predator and all the ways that we've come to know him. So when Anita Hill came to New York to promote her book, Speaking Truth to Power, and her movie, I met her and gave her my letter to Clarence Thomas. So Clarence Thomas is connected to E.T., E.T. the extraterrestrial, who was a real person. My article in La Voz Hispanic de Colorado, which was called Affirmative Action Capitalist Style, it's an article that was considered so dangerous that they used it to put Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court and make sure that I could never see the light of day with my ideas. But on the same page as my article was an article by about a guy named E.T. That was his real name, E.T. His name was E.T. LaFour. And what would E.T. be doing here? His job was to put all the radar and satellites into the Denver airport. So then E.T. became the real E.T., and that was really my connection to this extraterrestrial life. And so that's how I got connected to E.T., and this is how I have come to be the world's foremost astrophysicist, and I'm going to take my knowledge and my creativity and use it to try to create millionaires and billionaires out of Black and Hispanic entrepreneurs. It's totally possible to do that. And the only reason that I was unable to do it is because there was a woman who worked for multi-channel news her name is Marcel Seal. And Marcel wrote an article about Altavision, which was the Hispanic channel. And so I had a 20% interest in Altavision, and I was going to make this a reality, what I'm talking to you about using the securities industry to create millionaires and billionaires and to create reparations for black people and to involve blacks and Hispanics in the securities industry. This was all a done deal, and I owned 20% of Altavision, and we were suing them to make this a reality. So the article by Marcel Seal was infiltrated by the CIA. They destroyed multi-channel news, which was the largest cable television publication, because it was about me and Altavision and the securities industry and making this a reality. So Marcel Seal's first cousin was Bobby Seale, the founder of the Black Panthers. So they called me a member of the Black Panther Party because I was connected to Bobby Seale. And then they used Eldridge Cleaver, H. Rap Brown, Angela Davis, Abby Hoffman, Stokely Carmichael. I was connected to all these people. Stokely Carmichael became Harold Carmichael of the Philadelphia Eagles, and just Philadelphia is where Trump went to college. They just used the intelligence agencies to keep me suppressed. So I'm a Black Panther, I'm dangerous. The Black Panthers were only there to protect black people. That's all they were guilty of doing. Richard Nixon destroyed every headquarters of the Black Panther Party. So I consider myself the nation's first white panther, and I've been talking about psychic energy, which is a province totally really dominated by African people. Hispanic people have a superior nervous system, and it was Hispanics that brought ET to this planet in the first place. Asian people are from Mars originally. They initiated their as one-celled animals from Mars, so they came to the Earth when their one cell plunged into the ocean, and they evolved into Hispanics. So therefore I'm saying that the superior people on planet Earth are blacks, Hispanics, and Asians for all these different reasons. These are original mankind. They look different because they're original. The original cannot change because it wouldn't be the original anymore. They wouldn't have these tremendous powers. So over time, pigmentation wore off, and people started looking more bland and more white, and like me, I don't have any particular features that make me look like anything. So the further you get from blacks, Hispanics, and Asians, the further you're getting from original mankind. So I'm going to use my power and knowledge of the securities industry to try to create income equality and use our knowledge collectively for the benefit of people of color, because really in American democracy, Blacks, Hispanics, and Asians have achieved so much through our system that this is an attack on our democracy to prevent people of color from coming into power. So I'll leave it at that. I hope to impregnate somebody by next year, and then we'll have all the power we need, me and my ethnic partners and entrepreneurs. Thank you for listening. Take care. Have a Merry Christmas.